Okay, everybody, this is our next lesson here, the fight in the Soviet Union, Europe, and North Africa. This is for our unit, or for the unit World War II. I hear our objectives and standards, so take a moment to read over theirs, okay? Desired result, what was fighting like in these areas? So just kind of describe briefly what was going on in these areas, how did the Allies kind of, come up with a tactic or a strategy to conquer these areas. So the fight in the Soviet Union. So Hitler had had his troops fighting in the Soviet Union since 1941. He broke up his agreement with Stalin and decided to attack the Soviet Union. So they are pushing further and further into the Soviet Union beginning in June 1941. However, in November of that year, 1941, the Germans are going to be stopped outside of Moscow and Leningrad during the winter. And finally, in the summer of 1942, the Germans will begin an offensive that was very successful. So Stalingrad. So the Germans attacked Stalingrad for many months in violent combat, and again, they were forced to stop during the winter months. And the Soviets are actually going to seize this opportunity to kind of form a counterattack. And the Germans will be surrounded and trapped during this counterattack. And eventually they'll be forced to kind of surrender and be forced kind of backwards, back to where they were in the beginning of the Soviet Union. The battle for North Africa, Americans and British forces launched something called Operation Torch. It was an invasion of the Axis-controlled areas of North Africa, and this operation will be led by an American by the name of General Dwight D. Eisenhower. We'll learn more about him later on when we talk more about Europe. In November of 1942, Allied troops are going to land in North Africa, and they're going to fight and chase German General Erwin Rommel. He had become known as the Desert Fox because of his excellent military tactics in North Africa. Had a lot of success against the Allies prior to this, a lot of success against the British. So he was kind of nicknamed the Desert Fox because he was kind of sneaky and tricky and stuff like that. But by May of that year, in 1943, the German forces will be forced to surrender. The war in Italy. The Allies agreed that capturing Italy before Germany would probably be a wise idea. They captured Sicily by the spring of 1943 and had some success there. Eventually, Mussolini will be forced to resign and will be arrested as well. But the struggle for Italy and the fight for Italy will unfortunately continue until the end of the war, because there's going to be some supporters of Mussolini there still, and some Nazi supporters who are going to keep that war going. Alright, so that kind of shows you a brief little introduction to the war in Europe and the Soviet Union and Italy. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Try your best on the questions that follow, and I'll talk to you guys soon.